Well, again, thank you all for being here, and thank you, John, for hosting. My name is Dale, and I live in Gardner, and that's where I live with my husband, Russ, who passed away from Alzheimer's. And this story follows my journey with him, but it's the emotions that I felt during the journey. I could never find anything about how it feels to be a caregiver. And I just felt so alone in what I was going through. I had this huge roller coaster of emotions that I didn't expect. I mean, if I had a bad thought, I was a bad person. If I wanted my life back, I was selfish. If I didn't know how to do something, I was incompetent. And it wasn't until after Russ passed, and I did a lot of research, I discovered, oh my gosh, that's all normal. It was normal. And I beat myself up so badly about that. And I thought, that's just not acceptable. So I decided that I would just write a book about how I felt. And a little bit of background, we have two daughters, Holly and Heidi, and we live in West Gardner. When Russ was about 57, he began showing some signs of just things not quite being right. But I mean, I just didn't think it right. He retired early, and I was still working, so you know how it goes like that. And he was very robust, healthy, active, so it would be hard to think anything was really going on with him. But he was actually starting his dementia journey at 57. And he was diagnosed at 62. He was home until 72, and then he went into a nursing home for the last 5 years. It was about 20 years. And I just decided after the journey ended, I was going to write this book to spare other caregivers what I went through, because I realized that we can't change our person. We love them, but we can't change what's happened to them. And we can't change how we feel about it, because we're going to have these emotions whether we like them or not. But we can change how we feel about ourselves and how we feel. Because I think caregivers are heroes. What caregivers go through, the nation has no real sense of the huge physical and emotional toll of being a caregiver. And one of the reasons, too, is to really educate people on what it actually does to a caregiver. And we'll get into some of that as we go through that. But so this is the book, You're the Wife and the Widow. It's 185 short stories. Each story is 1 or 2 pages, and it starts with a quote, which I'll read to you, and it ends with an honest emotion. And there's 185 of them in the book, and I'm going to read about maybe 14 or so. And I'm just going to kind of go through the journey, and then we can have questions and so forth at the end. Does that sound okay? If you want to ask questions in the meantime, just do so. If you really want to know something, I don't mind at all. We can just stop and do that. So, okay. So, this is a quote that I had at the very beginning of the book. And it's from Rosalind Carter. Some of you may have heard this quote. Yes. It's from 1979, and she was speaking before the U.S. Senate, trying to advocate for more help for caregivers. And I just applaud her for that. And I look back 50 years and think we've made progress, but nowhere near enough. And this is what she said. There are only 4 kinds of people in the world: those who have been caregivers, those who are caregivers, those who will be caregivers, and those who will need caregivers. And isn't that the truth? That's universal. And this is the introduction to the book. And this book is about my emotions with Russ having Alzheimer's, but it can pertain to someone who's dealing with Parkinson's or addictions, anything where there's something chronic, long-term, that's unpredictable, changes from day to day. Your life is just a roller coaster of everything. So even though I talk about dementia here, it can pertain to you folks in your own situations as well. So this is called Caregiver to Caregiver. The courage it takes to share your story might be the very thing someone else needs to open their heart to hope. Hello, kindred caregivers. This book is a heart-to-heart conversation between us, just you and me, but a must-read for everyone. It's a chance to talk with you, not at you, about what we do and how we feel as caregivers for loved ones with dementia. The Alzheimer's journey I describe in my family may not match yours, and my caregiver emotions may not reflect your own. But there's no right, no wrong in caregiver land. And above all, I believe we share a common sense of grief and loss. I dare say, unless someone has carried this load, it's almost impossible to grasp the daily horror and disbelief of watching the personhood of our loved one ever so slowly disintegrate before our eyes. It is the cruel, unrelenting march of an interminable terminal illness. I, for one, desperately needed to know that my confusing jumble of emotions, and yes, even my not-so-pretty thoughts, were an expected and normal byproduct of grueling, never-ending caregiving. I craved release from my guilt. I needed to know I was doing my best, even on a bad day, and that no one had the right to judge me. No one. My sole desire with this book is to help caregivers internalize that we are not alone, neither in our experiences nor in the emotions we feel. They are universal, all. We are survivors, proud of caregiving that can bend the soul but never break it. We are one with the untold numbers of silent caregiver heroes who willingly give our all to our loved ones, give it again, and still yet again. Know that you are magnificent, and I salute you. This first story, we don't know what's going on with Russ. Just stuff's going on, and this gives you an idea of what we were encountering. This is called The Desk. We must dare to think unthinkable thoughts. The U-Haul was nearly chock-a-block full. Our cars were crammed with the last scattering of boxes. This was moving day from our family home of 20-plus years. A rental awaited us while our new house was being built. The bittersweet hour had come. The girls and I scurried about trying to wind things up. Russ headed to his study, at long last, to pack up his most prized possession, his desk. Its top was covered, and the drawers full, despite weeks to have done the deed. Why had he dilly-dallied so? It was to the point of absurdity. My mind chastised, "Come on, slowpoke, get a move on." Couldn't he see the 0 hour had come? For the second time, Holly urged, "Dad, you must clean out your desk. We need to get on the truck." I finished up the last-minute details and checked again on Russ. What the heck? He'd packed nothing. I couldn't even begin to take in the moment. What was wrong with him? This was crazy, unbelievable. Holly rounded the corner and stopped short. "Dad, you not packed?" "Oh, I got plenty of time," came his calm reply. As I stared at his unfazed face, could he really and truly not grasp the situation? The truck was right out there. Concern in my mind rocketed off to a really scary place before I reined in my, "Oh, Dale, don't be so silly," thoughts. And that the honest emotion was bewildered. Just couldn't figure out. He was an engineer. I mean, he was so competent. He was just always so on top of things. It was just so unnatural for him to behave like that. And this is called, I'm going to skip to the diagnosis part. It took us a long time to get him diagnosed. I saw all these strange things, and so I made an appointment with the doctor, and he said it was restless high blood pressure, which was never that high, but he said, "It's going to be fine, nothing more is going to happen." Things kept getting worse. I went back a year later. Oh, it's depression. He's turning 60. Things are changing. He's getting depressed. And I knew better, but he was a geriatrician, and I mean, it's so subtle and so insidious, you question. So we had another year, so it's 3 years now. I took my daughter, and we had a 3-page list of things he couldn't do. And he finally agreed to authorize an evaluation for Russ. And he had the evaluation. The evaluator said, yeah. And so we went back for the appointment, and the doctor said, "Oh, it's arteriosclerosis." I just knew that wasn't right. And that night, I called him. I need to know more about it. And he finally said, "Yes, Dale, it really is Alzheimer's. You can tell him that it's Alzheimer's. As far as we think, it has all those symptoms." Now, why he couldn't say that to us, and this is what I wanted to share with you. This is the end of that story. It's called The Damning Truth. Only 33% of Medicare patients with Alzheimer's disease are given a diagnosis by their doctor. And if they have a support person with them, it goes up to 45%. But 90% of cancer patients on Medicare will be given a diagnosis. And as many as 60% of people with dementia pass without being told what their problem is. And this just speaks to still the tabooness of dementia. It's come so far, but I think doctors are concerned about mentioning it. And there are better tests now for it, but there's no cure for it. You can tell someone they have it, and you can't say, "Here's a pill, go get better." And that's just really a disservice because Russ and I were so delayed in getting on our bucket list and getting our financial matters in place and that sort of thing. And he could have been on medication during that time. Okay, this is called company. How we need another soul to cling to. Why did Russ always act fairly normal when visitors came? It was the most annoying, deceptive phenomenon, and belied all the prepping I'd given our guests. He would suddenly turn sparkly, smiley, attentive, able to comprehend and laugh at something humorous. A good thing, but what the heck? The first few times it happened, I felt embarrassed, worried that people thought I had exaggerated my stories of his condition, or worse, wanted sympathy. I floundered to respond when they'd whisper in the side, "Oh, he's doing so well," and maybe add, "Aren't you fortunate?" Well, sorry, folks, neither was even close to the truth. But to be fair, how could they know differently? If only guests had seen me earlier, walking on eggshells, trying to exude calmness and normalcy while covertly preparing for their arrival. I couldn't forewarn Russ of company coming as he'd turn anxious, balky, and difficult. Staying under the radar was imperative. But then the big moment would come, for good or not. Folks coming in, hugs and hellos all around, my armpits sweaty, my eyes alert, and shazam, magic. Russ would carry off the night with nary a snag. Go figure. My churning insides wanted to scream out, "Listen up here, folks. What you see isn't real. Happy party, dude, isn't always all this happy. Heck, can't you see that the next dementia, dilemma, surprise is just one quick surprise away? This life ain't no cakewalk." What was wrong with me? Why did I care so much about what our guests thought? Why did I need them to see through the guise of normalcy to the reality of our life? I detested pity, but yet I felt unseen. I was drowning alone in a world no one could see or recognize the truth of. I was alone in knowing what I was doing and what it was doing to me, to us as a couple. I desperately needed someone to just hold me close and say, "Dale, you are not alone. I know, I see, I do understand your pain." And that's one thing about being a caregiver. It's a very lonely, isolating job. And unless you can hook up with others in the same situation, it can make for a really lonely, isolating experience. Things are moving along. This is called the log. You don't need to be brave all the time. Sometimes 30 seconds is enough. The heavy piece of firewood smashed onto the bottom cellar step, splitting the tread open. Force threw the log back against the wall. A honking piece of wood had taken on a life of its own as I hurled it furiously down the stairway. I shook with exasperation, then exhilaration. Why was it that something so mundane, so innocently done by Russ, could enrage me so? He had dutifully filled the wood box for our living room stove, just as I'd asked. But good Lord, when I looked, the pieces were absolutely humongous. Yes, sirree. The wood box was bulging with massive pieces that wouldn't remotely fit into the stove. I'm not proud, but I lost it. I was furious. Those friggin' logs all needed to go back down cellar to the spitting pile. And without even realizing what I was doing, I grabbed a monster log, marched to the basement door, and flung it dramatically down the stairs with all my righteous rage. Now, was this firewood even the teentiest bit of a big deal? No. But cripes, what caregiver has time for that? We finagled the miraculous, just to stay 2 steps ahead of our loved one. We solve unsolvable problems. We ward off anxiety triggers. We scout for the missing, and above all, manage unpredictable and often scary behaviors, all without assistance. And then, we're supposed to happily dance off to just firewood? Give us a break. My rash, but very emotionally satisfying, log-throwing outburst was a pure moment of caregiver max out. I couldn't do all my life demanded of me. No end was in sight, only unnumbered days stretching into the limitless horizon. Reconciling this truth to my life left me in despair, hopeless. And this is what we call caregiver burnout or caregiver collapse. You just have kind of reached the end. You just don't think you could go on. You just totally burned out. This is called Childlike, and by now, because Russ was home for 10 years, I had a woman come in the beginning, like 2 mornings a week, and as it kept going on, eventually she ended up with me for 20 hours a week. And we can talk about this some more, but Russ was under a Medicare age, and I mean, we had to cash in all retirement because there's no provisions for anybody that has Alzheimer's for any kind of care. And I went to a conference in Dallas about a month ago, and I was making recommendations, and one of them was the minute that someone gets a diagnosis, they need to be eligible for Medicare despite their age, and they need to be eligible for daycare and in-home support for caregivers. But anyway, so my person is Linda. She was there with me. Childlike. I sat with my anger long enough until she told me her real name was grief. Russ had Linda in stitches. He was standing, jiggling around in the living room, making all sorts of goofy body motions, accompanied by silly faces and weird noises. Linda was thoroughly entertained, and Russ was loving his audience. They were having a blast, and that was good. But I didn't like it, not one little bit. It made me mad. I wasn't a spoil sport, for I love fun as much as the next. But his antics upset me. I cringed seeing my dignified husband showing off like an uninhibited, off-the-rails little 4-year-old kid. Good Lord, it was ridiculous. I left the room to calm myself. Anger flared for both Russ and Linda. Why was she encouraging him? Didn't it break her heart to see him so altered? And right there was the answer. Linda had only known and grown to love Russ over time as his caregiver. She loved him exactly as he was in the moment. Keeping him safe and happy as possible was her job, and she was excellent at it. But me? I mourned the Russ I'd known for nearly 50 years. It was painful to see my life partner reduced to a jabbering, gyrating, childlike person I didn't recognize. That wasn't the Russ I wanted. I wanted my Russ. His unsettling behavior visually slapped me with proof positive of his decline. Yes, I was angry, but not at Russ and not at Linda. I was angry about Russ fading from himself, from me, and from us. I was grieving. My anger was grief. I was pretty mad. This is called the shower stall. Okay, but after all, the best thing one can do when it is raining is just let it rain. No way, it wasn't going to happen. For Russ, the shower stall was the boogeyman within 4 white walls. Even the mention of showering sent him into epileptic stubbornness. Russ had always loved his showers, so how could this now be? He'd even possessed such a squeaky clean appearance that one of my friends had once exclaimed, "Russ always looks so clean, Dale. I don't mean that you don't, but it's just that his face always looks so fresh." Okay, so I devised clever showering strategies I would surely do the trick. Like taking turns, I take a shower, he'd take a shower, or taking showers together, me heading in first and then him following. Wouldn't you think? Nope. Russ was suspicious of all my ideas, and he demanded privacy. Well, if privacy was what he wanted, then privacy he would get. I placed a towel, washcloth, deodorant, and clean clothes on the bathroom stand. Soap and shampoo went on the shower seat. I threw on the shower to his preferred temperature, then smugly surveyed the perfectly set scene. All looked good. "Okay, dear," I said cheerily, "everything's ready. You're all set to go in." And by golly, he gingerly entered the bathroom and closed the door. Hooray, we were off. Time passed, then more time, and I didn't hear anything. Strange, better check. I carefully cracked open the door to look. There stood Russ, fully clothed, glaring back at me, mad as heck, and said, "Don't peek." He furiously slammed the door in my face. More time passed in silence. I waited. At this rate, the well would run dry. Finally, I offered, "You all set, dear?" No response. Well, this plan wasn't panning out. "Okay, dear. If you finished your shower, why don't you come on out now?" The door opened, and Russ emerged, looking exactly as when he'd entered. "Did you have a nice shower, dear?" "Yes," he replied. And so it went until I grudgingly convinced myself to just go with the flow. I'd let go of fussing about his appearance, let go of frequent clothing changes, even let go of trying fruitlessly to brush his teeth. Ever tried prying open a buttoned-up, resistant mouth? I'd have to make do with the occasional jackpot shower and semi-regular change of clothing and make these successes worthy of a celebration. For sure, people had survived with worse hygiene, so why continue stressing of what I was powerless to change? So we both got a pass. But what else could I do? And relenting felt good. An honest emotion was relenting. Took me a while to get there, but you learn that you can only do so much. You can't change everything you wish would happen. Okay, this is called The Moment. I saw the cloud, though I did not see the storm. Turning point day. I can still viscerally feel it in my gut. The moment I knew I was in over my head and caring for Russ. It was mid-morning. Russ and I were in the kitchen, and he was agitated. I had no clue about the cause of his distress or how to resolve it. The usual tricks of the trade had all failed. Ugh! Okay, Dale, just settle yourself down and focus. I calmly tried reassuring him that all was well, hoping to pull him back from whatever dark place he was racing toward. My words didn't penetrate. He paced back and forth, agitation escalating. His nonsense talk. By now he couldn't really speak. He had a lot of nonsense talk like ga-ding-ga-ding, toot papa, deedle-deedle. And I could always tell by the frequency with which he spoke and the volume what he was really conveying. And right now his nonsense talk turned louder, more rapid, and interjected with Jesus Christ, which was a most not good sign. I slowly approached with arms out, hoping my touch would reverse his emotional direction. He jerked back as if seared by a flame and roughly shoved aside my arms. This was uncharted territory. There had been hairy episodes with Russ before, but they'd been mostly anxiety or fear-driven, not anger, as this seemed to be. What to do? Gosh, I guess I just have to try another anxiety pill. As he paced, I crushed the pill and slipped it inside the ever-ready Oreo cookie. And slipped inside the ever-ready cookie. I slowly neared him with a cookie, looking into his eyes that were now wild and shiny bright. His face was contorted, angry, scary. He backed up against the table and thrust out his arms. Was this in self-protection or to lash out? A tingle of first-time fear arose from the unrecognizable before me. Here was someone I did not know. This nightmare had to stop. Without moving further, I said softly, "Look, dear, your favorite cookie." And with that, he erupted, turned and slammed his fist violently down on the table. The strike reverberated like thunder in the room. The table shook. Something somewhere crashed to the floor. Honestly, what happened next, I don't remember. Disbelief and fear had paralyzed my brain. The only thing I knew for certain was I was still standing, alive. I'd always wondered how caregivers knew when it, quote, was time. That dreaded moment of realizing they could no longer meet the needs and safety of their loved one or themselves. Reconciling they were out of their element, having neither the behavioral management skills nor the proper medicines to continue on. The answer I repeatedly heard was, you'll know, you'll just know. And you know what? I did. At that moment, I really did know. But the mind can so easily avoid a painful truth, put off taking a wrenching action. Yeah, surely today was just a bad one-off. So I waited. And the honest emotion was putting off, denying. Pardon? This was probably about 14 years in. Yeah. This is called a trio. Guilt is a generous giver. Crippling guilt ripped me open. I agonized over whether I could ever, really and truly ever, remove Russ from our home and place him in a dementia care facility. We'd been together nearly 50 years. Deciding was wrenching, horrible. But during the biggest emotional turmoil of my life, 3 special women rescued me. Daughter Heidi. Dad would not want to see you like this. It's not the life he'd want for you. You're still young and healthy, and he'd want you to have a full life. You have grandchildren waiting for you. He'd want you to move forward and live for him in your life. Daughter Holly. Mom, it's not you putting Dad in the facility. You are not doing it. You are not responsible. Alzheimer's is. The disease is responsible for Dad. The disease is saying what must happen. And Linda, my caregiver, yes, Dale, Russ just did have a good day, but you cannot make your decision based on his best day. You know where this is going. It must be based on how bad his worst day has been. Whoa, how fortunate was I, drowning in gut-rotting guilt, to have 3 strong women guide me out of my temporary madness. They all loved Russ. They wanted him safe and happy and receiving the care he needed. And they loved me and wanted me free from needless anguish so I could be happy and safe. In my darkness, they bestowed soul-saving light, and my thanks to them is eternal. And because of what they told me, I was able to place Russ. I just fought it forever and ever and ever. But that really made sense to me, what they said. It really sunk in. And they knew they couldn't save their dad, but they wanted to save me. They saw what it was doing to me, and they were trying to convince me that I could do that. And it went successfully, by the way. This is called the paradox, and Russ is now in the nursing home. Caregiver passes away from caregiving. I'm pulling no punches here, Dale, said the doctor. Unless something changes, you're going to have a heart attack. I stared at her face, serious with concern, and she held my medical records. Unfamiliar fear jolted through me. I knew my wellness exam was years delayed, for life had been too difficult to pull it off. But cripes, the good health I prided myself upon, the sturdiness passed down from my lineage, where had they gone? A heart attack? Is it that bad? I croaked. Yes, she confirmed, a heart attack or stroke, and believe me, you want neither. I knew I was overweight, 30 pounds of down comfort food, and my waistline extra pudgy from the effects of stress-induced cortisol. But little did I know about my high blood pressure, nasty cholesterol levels, elevated triglycerides, wacky liver counts, lowered immune system, and my body's inflammation level that was off the chart into the red pit of crisis. Holy cow, I guess I was a mess, yet I gaped at the impossibility of the downfall of healthy old me. What had happened? I'd just become another Alzheimer's hidden patient, one among millions who forgo our own health in order to meet the demanding challenges of 24/7 caregiving for a loved one. Behold the grim statistics. Family caregivers have a 63% higher mortality rate than their non-caregiver friends. And of those, 40% die an average of 2 years before who they're caring for. Isn't that awful? Women who care for a spouse for 9 hours a week have the risk of heart disease increased by 100%. Older persons caring for a spouse or partner with dementia are 6 times more likely to develop dementia themselves than the non-caregiver peer friends. 3 years is the average time for the caregiver's immune system to recover after caregiving. And this is the kicker. 25% of caregivers have suicidal ideations. Now, this is unexcusable. It's just absolutely unexcusable. I can't even believe this is going on in my country. People just don't know about this. People don't know what goes on with caregivers. We're kind of like alcoholics, the silent people in the background. They don't know this. And when people will say, like one of my friends would say to me, yeah, Russ is doing so good. You can keep him home until he passes. Well, I could. Well, I couldn't. But, no one ever recognizes what's going on with a caregiver. And that's why caregiver stress syndrome, caregivers can pass away before who they're caring for. It does such damage to their physical and emotional health. And my honest emotion was just inexcusable. I couldn't believe those facts when I found them. That question. All I want to do right now is cry and scream and let it all out because it's killing me. Wham, bam. I was in a routine meeting for Russ. Updates on weight, medications, and the like. Then suddenly, 5 sets of expectant eyes glued on mine as the nurse manager asked that question. What? I asked, even though I had heard the words. It was that question. My choices about Russ's preventive health care. I was caught unprepared. An air of unreality descended over me. The nurse manager repeated, Dale, do you want Russ to get his flu shot? Do you want us to give him a pneumonia shot? And how about I think it's a urinary tract infection? What do you want to do? The air felt electric and my mouth went dry. Why hadn't they forewarned me of the tough questions? Give me time to think, to prepare, and heck, be asked privately. I now have to blurt out before everyone the most impactful decision of my life, to save or not save that of Russ's. My hands were freezing and my throat burned. No, I blurted. We decided not to give Russ a flu shot or a pneumonia shot. If he gets a UTI, we'll let nature take its course and use palliative care. We're hoping something more merciful takes him before he wastes away from Alzheimer's. I felt pancaked by guilt, judgment, the shame of honesty, the weight of deciding Russ's fate. How many more times do I have to repeat my god-awful, excruciating decisions to admit that, yes, I was the heartless wife who'd let my husband die? To admit that, yes, I'd intentionally withhold interventions that would prolong his life. That I knew pneumonia and bladder infections were the most common complications in Alzheimer's deaths, and yet I'd let them rage unchecked within his body. Lost to me in that moment was my vow to spare Russ from Alzheimer's inevitable, even crueler, ravaging death spiral. The crushing responsibility and black guilt crashed in upon me, and I don't remember what followed. An honest emotion was playing God. Yeah. This is called the talk. The shattering of a heart being broken is the loudest quiet ever. As I entered the nursing home for a visit with Russ, the nurse manager beckoned to me and said, "Dale, come into my office for a minute. We need to talk about something." A full body jolt went through me like maybe a stun gun. Was Russ dying? We sat and the nurse leaned in. Her eyes turned anxious as she calmly said, "Russ has formed a sweet friendship with a new lady resident. They like to sit together, walk the hallways holding hands, and just keep company. I want to forewarn you before you go in to see him and witness it." Kapow! I considered that possibility, had even projected I wouldn't mind. After all, former Supreme Court Justice Senator O'Connor had given her blessing to the same situation with her husband. But in the reality of then and there, I struggled for words in shock. I blurted out that it hurt me in my gut. I felt punched. But then, in true smooth fashion, I collected myself and prattled on that I understood it was a disease, not personal, gave them companionship, made them less alone, yada, yada, yada. I thanked her, excused myself, and hurried to the security of my car. Holy heck, what was wrong with me? I knew my beliefs supported what I just said, but my body throbbed with hurt, disbelief, jealousy, protectiveness. My mind raced. No, I didn't want to have to snatch my husband from another woman when I visited. No, I didn't want to feel like an intruding third wheel. No, I didn't want him to be hurt by her. And for sure, I didn't want her to be skinny and cute. I was being outrageously ridiculous, and I knew that, but I couldn't help myself. Getting my head and heart to reconcile seemed impossible. Several days passed before I could reach logical acceptance. Russ's new friendship had poked at my grief. It was a wrenching, visual reminder of the emotional and physical separation between us. My heart ached, knowing that I remained in the real world of our relationship, while he had slipped beyond it. The honest emotion was jealous. Okay, this is called After Effects, and I think, for me at least, I thought when Russ was in the nursing home that my life would be freed and I could just carry on and live my life, and I'd still love him and care for him and be with him, but it would be a change. I had no idea that caregiving goes so much into the nursing home. It continues on, it doesn't stop, and you become a caregiver no matter where they are, and caregiving kind of gets seeped into your soul. The responsibilities of it just really cling to you, no matter, we have to trust that person to the nursing home that they're going to do the right thing. Anyway, this is called After Effects. I want to wake up, recharge my batteries, undertake a new project, get myself back to myself, but I can't start where I'm not. My expectations have been so off. I knew I'd miss Russ once he was in a facility, and I knew my wifely vigilance to his care would continue no matter what. But I projected that once he was placed, my life would be freed, and I'd soar like a bird with the projects and ideas I'd shelved for years. After all, wasn't that what my soul needed? For my chipper, energetic self to return? I couldn't have been more wrong. It didn't matter how rehearsed my plans for takeoff had been. I couldn't purge the accumulated deadweight from years of caregiving. The hollowness within me wouldn't fill. I felt paralyzed to do anything more than sit and wake and just be. I, the sad movie crybaby, no longer shed tears. I felt damaged, berating myself for months with Geez, why am I so weak? What is wrong with me? I thought I should have popped up like a tightly wound jack-in-the-box, eager to be sprung, all bushy-tailed, bright-eyed, and ready to take on the world. But in truth, we caregivers are depleted. We've miraculously reached the end of our hands-on caregiving journey, but our souls and health are battered. Our loved one may have been placed or perhaps passed on, but either way, like it or not, we exit the journey as a changed person. And this dovetails with what I found out. I couldn't believe it. And my honest emotion was changed. I was changed, yeah. This is called the PTSD secret. It's not about your brokenness. It's about what happened to you that caused it. Well, what have we here? Who knew that caregiving for family with Alzheimer's disease is a leading cause of post-traumatic stress disorder? It is. Symptoms are typically overlooked because attention is on the patient, and caregiver stress is often perceived as an unpleasant but unavoidable byproduct of caregiving. Thus, caregivers remain overlooked, undiagnosed, and their psychological damage untreated. I find it apprehensible that this lack of knowledge exists for an apparently common, debilitating emotional health issue, and it's so universal. This stress frustrates me to near madness. It is not okay. How I agonized over what was wrong with me. I had no idea that family caregiver PTSD existed. Neither my counselor I went to or my doctor, when I asked him specifically to help me with why I just felt like I was a dead person inside, could tell me what was wrong with me. Oh, you've just had a hard time. Had I known my struggle was normal, that I wasn't weak, my critical self-judgment unjustified, and my issues valid, believe you me, there is no imagination big enough to capture the relief it would have granted. So, now I'm shouting my loudest from the tippy top of my tallest bandwagon. Why do caregivers not know about this? Why do doctors not watch for this? Where can we get help? Enough is enough. Let's generate counselors specializing in caregiver trauma. Let's provide services for affected caregivers, and above all, let's demand public awareness. Stat. And the honest emotion was too late. I mean, for me, I just spent so many years suffering, and I just didn't know this. I didn't know this. And this is why this book, we all need to know what caregivers are going through, and we need to be able to address it head on. And there's been some consideration of calling it PTSD AD for Alzheimer's disease, because there's a few subtle changes from the traditional PTSD of combat veterans, but it's PTSD. And we just got to get in the bandwagon with this stuff. Okay, this is called Neither Wife Nor Widow. I exist in limbo. I hear the tick of the unmoving clock and feel time slowly erasing me. I've never been keen on those checkoff boxes, pegging one as married, single, widow, widower, or any other type of personal identifier. There are times when knowing has its purpose, but otherwise, doesn't it feel intrusive? I didn't like them before Russ went into dementia care, and afterward, I loathed them. So, I left the boxes blank. Those round holes had no place for a square peg like me. 'Twas year 3 of Russ in the nursing home, more than 15 handling the disease. He still roamed the halls, offered up tidbits of his endearing word salad gibberish. He still chuckled, but did Russ know me? No. I was a mere fleeting interest of something that was passing by. A limbo land, this. I felt to be only existing, trapped in a holding pattern, unable to move on, but whatever that meant, and even then, to what I knew not. Waiting, but for what? Release? Freedom to do as I wanted even though Russ still lived? Alzheimer's comes with no ending date. I loved Russ, the person, but the father, the husband, the funny man with a sharp wit, was no more. I was married, but with no husband. I was neither wife nor widow, caught in a no woman's land of non-identity. There was no box to check. And my honest emotion was nothingness. Nothingness. This is called Permission. I just moved Russ into another nursing home because we had a lot of issues with the first one. It was great in the beginning, but we had to make a change later. This is called Permission. Dwell on the beauty of life. Watch the stars and see yourself running with them. Russ had successfully transferred to his new facility. I was relieved and couldn't be happier. He seemed settled in. He looked chipper and relaxed, cute in his jeans and plaid shirt, as he hung near the kitchen where fresh cookies were coming his way. Things looking mighty great about this place. Feeling satisfied and happy with all I'd seen, I started toward the door when I heard, "Mrs. Sherburne, Mrs. Sherburne?" I looked to see Dr. Hayes, the geriatrician on staff, calling me. He wanted to chat. After a few pleasantries, he got down to business. "I want you to know that Russ is in good hands here. Dementia care is what we do. Our staff is excellent. You have done your work caring for Russ. Let us now do that work for you. You've put in your time. This is now your time." What was this? What was happening? This encounter had come out of nowhere like a blitz, and it felt surreal. Dr. Hayes continued, "Russ would want you to go live your life. You live life for him, and it's time you live it for you. Russ will be fine here. We will call you when we have concerns, but here is not where you need to live your life." I was stunned, maybe even temporarily delusional. This Dr. Hayes was releasing me, freeing me from my crippling sense of responsibility, allowing me to shed my guilt, giving me permission to shake out my dusty wings and fly. I reached the car and collapsed on the steering wheel. I didn't cry, I just felt otherworldly. I felt psychically drained in every neuron throughout my brain. My body felt physically exhausted, right down to my little pinky. My heart ached with the fear of being set free, yet also exploded with relief and release. I had been given the permission I could never give myself. Permission to be happy, permission to move on, permission to love Russ in a different model of love, a model called life. And honest emotion was set free. And as I said before, when a person is placed, I myself felt such a profound responsibility to always know what was going on and be there. Yet I didn't like going to visit Russ. And I talk about that in the book. I did not like it, and it gave me debilitating guilt. But I get there, he couldn't talk, he didn't know me, would walk around. I felt like I was playing a fake role, just doing what I was expected to do. It just didn't feel genuine. And I would leave feeling so much worse than when I got there. And I thought, what's wrong with me? Then I finally realized that, I was afraid people would think if I didn't show up all the time, I didn't love Russ. My proof of love was my showing up. Because that's why people would always ask, how often do you see Russ? Do you see Russ every day, Dale? Do you go every week, Dale? I mean, why do they want to know? It's as if it has something to do with my goodness as being a caregiver. It's a very unusual phenomenon that I think goes on that we need to talk more about. And again, I was talking about that conference I was at, and I think we need to talk more with families when people are placed, because there should be no expectation for what people have. It's an individualized thing. And if Russ had a different disease and could talk and communicate, it would be different. But it was so painful to be there. Okay, anyway. This is a direct quote. "Get the fuck out of Dodge." Russ is in the nursing home and it's COVID. To die will be an awfully big adventure. Russ's injury was an accident. He'd been leisurely walking the hallway when, without warning, his body flipped, feet arched high in the air toward the ceiling. Then his body fell downward, with the back of his head hitting full force upon the floor. The thrust sent him and his slippers skidding across the floor in opposing directions. Horrified staff scurried to tend to him, cleaning away the blood oozing from his ear. Pain meds were administered, while staff closely monitored for damage from the fall. Within hours, it became clear he had sustained a traumatic brain injury. Morphine replaced Tylenol, and his eyes became fixed, dilated. Upon hearing of his decline, because we hadn't seen him for a while, I felt trapped in a bubble of surreal horror and disbelief. Despite our conviction to stay with comfort care if something ever happened to him, it's a mighty hellish position to maintain when bleak reality is staring one in the face. To play God with another's life is beyond excruciating. No words will capture its horror. Dr. Hayes, I need your assessment of Russ's injury. I need to know our decision is the right one. My head believes it is, but my heart hasn't caught up. The guilt in purposely letting him go is just unbearable. Dale, Russ has given us a clear, unambiguous message. He has had enough. But how can you know that? I asked, begging in my heart for an answer I could understand and believe. We know that, even in damaged brains, there is a part that ever mysteriously and wondrously works. I've treated many of the Alzheimer's patients who one day decides they're ready. For example, I had a patient with frequent boils who were treated with antibiotics, but one time it couldn't save him. We couldn't stop the infection. The patient had decided to let go, and none of my efforts could help. Dearly continued, we need to understand that Russ went to remarkable lengths to pull off such a stunning feat. He knows what he wants. He hopes that you see that too, and will let him go. He's been a gentleman all these years. He's had enough. Russ is telling us he is ready to get the fuck out of Dodge. I was shocked, both at his words and at the surety of his conviction. And you know what? I believed every word he said. I never really could reconsider our decision, but the reassuring words just saved my tormented heart. I do believe in the ever-present invisible mysticism of death and life. Russ was on the path he had chosen. We were honoring that. And in my grief came a measure of peace. Honest emotion, a believer. This is called Till Later, My Love. A real goodbye is when silence does all the talking. We can only give you 30 minutes, Dale, and just you. Your visit is an exception to the rule because of Russ's condition. I'm sorry your daughters won't be able to see him, but the facility can't risk visitors with COVID. In a calm trance, I followed the COVID masked nurse from the building's back entrance to the hallway of Russ's wing. I had walked the remaining short steps to his room hundreds of times, but they felt endless and oddly unfamiliar. Rather than bouncing in to fetch him his beloved peppermint patties, I was going to see him for the first time and last time since COVID. These would be our final moments together in 50-plus years of marriage. I would never, ever be able to place my eyes upon him again. We were ending. My man would soon be gone, and nothing felt real. I feared seeing Russ in some contorted state I couldn't bear, but he looked peaceful, his eyes closed and face relaxed. Joy, he was not suffering. The nurse turned to close the door and softly said we had 30 minutes. I ever so carefully edged onto the twin bed and gently laid myself beside him, my face next to his sweet one. I touched his face, his hair, and kissed his still soft cheek. Believing he could hear me, I said the loving words that were springing from my grateful and aching heart. I whispered that the girls and I would be fine, and that he was free to go in peace with my blessing. Tears did not flow. That odd, calm modus operandi that kicks in during trauma situations had struck. As the half hour passed compassionately into an hour, Russ and I lay in peaceful, companionable silence in that dim room, my arm twined across his warm body, my fingers caressing his cheek, and the quilt cover binding together our love. And honest emotion as one. And this is the last entry in our Russ's past. It's called Hi Dear. Every new beginning comes from other beginnings' ends. It was perfect, or truly perfect. Russ's remains were encased in a tall, oval, leafy green container of rice paper, adorned with a red maple leaf and tied with red raffia. It was simple, lovely, and just right for my nature-loving man. The family's plan was to complete Russ's journey by spreading his ashes at its most beloved spot on earth, camp. But COVID had plans of its own. A joint trip to camp for our three families never materialized that first summer. Snow arrived, and Russ still waited on my bedroom bureau. I strangely found myself beginning to enjoy seeing him there. What I once would have definitely been ghoulish now felt kind of good. Who knew? On upbeat days, I'd walk by and offer up a "Hi, dear" to the inviting-looking container, planting a big smack of a kiss on the top. On tough days, I'd carefully rest my forehead against it and gently hug the sides with a "Hi, dear," request for comfort, knowing soon my heart would lighten. We're now in year 4, but it's really 6, and I predict Russ isn't going anywhere. Nope, he and I, we go out together. What a strange world we live in. But you know what? I am happy. Honest emotion is happy. And that's our journey. And what I would like people to take from this is that it's hard from the outside to really know what goes on with a caregiver and the person that they're caring for. It's such a complex journey for both, and both suffer. And we need to really make sure we take better care of our caregivers. You can see the horrible health ramifications that come. And I believe that every doctor should have on his patient list, anyone who's a caregiver, to know that. So when the patient comes in and the doctor comes in, he'll know that that person's a caregiver and can look for those hidden patient symptoms, all the things that were wrong with somebody, but you don't know. There are so many things we can do, but it's just educating. It's educating. And I do think because so many, 2/3 of people that caregive are women, and of those 1/3 are daughters. But yet, it's 2/3 of women that have dementia. So you can see that the stats are kind of skewed for women being a caregiver. And I think that's part of the reason why, from my different research, it's lagged, because caregiving was never really considered something that was able to produce PTSD. It was just something that people endured. And I said we need to stop putting women in the get to it file folder. We got to take it out and start working on stuff right away. And so I hope this helped you, gave you some insight into what goes on, and lets you know that people can have the hardest emotions, feel so frustrated, angry, full of love and joy, frustration, misery, but it never changes our love for a person. It never changes a thing. And all those feelings are normal. We are normal. And caregivers are heroes. We bend, but we don't break. Any questions? Hi.
Yeah. Writing that book, what effect did that have on your journey?
I wrote it afterwards. Yeah. Oh, it helped so much. I had no idea. Like when I was talking about when Russ was, I was mad when he was acting so silly with a caregiver. I didn't realize at the time until I started doing that. That was really grief. I wasn't really mad. It was really grief. And then when I looked back and I realized, like, why did I feel so guilty about not going? I did go to the nursing home, even though I didn't like to go. But why did I feel so guilty about it? And I finally realized that it was that guilt of expectation, So I learned so much, and have such a greater admiration and compassion for caregivers. I mean, I didn't realize what I was going through. You don't until it's over. And for me, I am different. I mean, I'm going to say me, but I don't really cry anymore. I really don't cry about anything. And I was always a crybaby, person at movies and stuff. But it's just something that I feel like it just closed up like a spigot, my ability to do that. Because, and I know I'm just kind of talking here, but I realized that when you're a caregiver, you can't ever get really happy about something. Like the kids would be in the house, I couldn't say, "Oh, come look, kid, this is great." Because Russ would come right over, nervous that something was going on because the calm had been altered. Or if I'd say, "Oh no, how'd that happen?" He'd come right over all nervous because he was worried something bad was happening. You have to keep this neutral emotional state constantly. And it just simply numbs your emotions, numbs you right up. And that's part of the PTSD, And it just takes, realizing that helped me a lot. I didn't feel broken anymore. And I don't want people to feel broken. I need to know that they're okay. They're doing great. Doing great. Any other questions?
Because it takes so long, year, day after day, 24/7, all the time. No wonder you get PTSD.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'm so surprised, but it's weird that people don't, even doctors don't realize.
No.
What is wrong with that?
And I went, because my doctor was the same doctor that Russ had that kept saying he didn't have dementia, so I probably have to dismiss that. But my own counselor, I went to and I said, "Oh, I'm just a shell. I don't feel anything. I can't cry. I'm just numb. I just blah, 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 blah." And she said, "Well, you just had a hard time," which is true, but that isn't, what it needs to say is you have undergone a dramatic emotional trauma. This is a trauma response. It's not just a hard time, it's a trauma response. And trauma can be treated, but it has to, first of all, be understood it's even there. So, and I feel like caregivers who live out, I mean, if you think out in the plains, out in the Midwest, someone has a husband that's got dementia and they're miles and miles from anything. and he's combative and scary, and she has nobody to help and no family around. No wonder they consider contemplating suicide, because this could go on for like 15 years. There's no end in sight. And every day is rocky. You don't know what to expect, and every day is trying to ward off all those anxiety triggers and staying 2 steps ahead. It takes constant energy. And I never felt resentful that Russ had it. I never felt resentful about anything because it wasn't his fault. But I did grieve that we lost our future together. It was just something that and this is why I feel so fulfilled with this book. If I could give this book to every library, they say to me, I tried to get Alzheimer's to do a grant for me. I just never heard back from them. But I love every library to have it. I love every caregiver group to have it, because when people, there's 185 stories in here, and they're just so illustrative of what you feel and go through that you don't even know it, because you're just blind as it's happening. When you go back and look at it, you say, oh, yeah. I had a friend who could never get her mother to shower, and she read the book, and she said, what would Dale do? She was a friend of our family. She said, she'd just say, okay, Mom, we'll forget the shower tonight. And she could give herself grace, because she knew it was possible. She'd seen it happen, and she said, people do that. I guess it is okay. And we had a friend whose husband her kids flew home for the weekend because they were going to place their father and her husband in a facility. And when the day came on that Sunday, the mother just couldn't do it. She just, like me, she just couldn't do it. Couldn't do it. So much guilt. And her daughter borrowed the book, and she read it, and she placed him, because she could see that her feelings were normal, that the guilt is there, but it's normal, and really it's not you doing it, it's the disease doing it. There's so many layers to this, and they all involve emotions. And to give up our person to a nursing home and let them take care of them, that's our person, How can we do that? But and I was fortunate that I found the nurse at the home. The doctor told me I should go live my own life, because I was visiting. It's been 5 years. I was still visiting, and I don't mean to sound like I sound like I'm a horrible. See, here I go, the guilt, horrible person. I'm just living it. But it's so hard to say it's okay, and the thing is, it is okay. It is okay. And I wish, again, like when people come to a nursing home, they say, we see every degree of visitations. Your person's fine, we'll call if there's a problem, or you can come every day if you want to. But one woman in a nursing home said to me, I know more about husband than you do. That doesn't help anything. I was like, this is all in the book. I go with these in the book, like one of them, it was called the support group. Russ just been diagnosed. I knew he had it, so I need to go to a support group and get some help. My first time out, to say it aloud, get in the support group, and we're going around, and people are saying, what do you plan to do for your person as they age and get sick or whatever happens? And so when it came to me, I said, well, my daughters and I, we decided that we're just going to use palliative care. He's terminal anyway. He's up a terminal, and what's happening is going to be horrible, and we hope something else takes him first. And across the room, someone bellowed, what? You're telling me I shouldn't give my wife her insulin for her diabetes? I said, that's not what I'm saying, And then he said, you're telling me that you wouldn't give your husband medication if he needed it? And I was so fragile like a twig. I just snapped. I couldn't even go back again, because I felt so judged. And yet, that's a decision we made, and others have a different decision, but we need to know it's okay. So playing God is not easy, but I know Russ wouldn't want it to have stayed longer. It's what he was telling us. He flipped way, way, way up in the air. The doctor said he didn't know how he ever could have done that. And so, any other questions?
I was just thinking it might be a conversation that married couples should have with each other about if the reality is a lot of people,
Mm-hmm.
and if that happens to me, or to you, what do you want me to do?
Yes. Yeah.
I just had another thought that, you know, going to see someone as close to you as your husband that doesn't know who you are. And I know to assuage any guilt,
Yeah.
you might be able to just go visit someone in a nursing home who would be very happy to see you,
Yeah.
doesn't know who you are today, won't know who you are next time, but still, they enjoy having company.
See, that's a nice thought because you're still doing the deed. You're just doing it in a different way. Yeah, yeah. That's see. These are all good because you can still do something good, but it didn't really do Russ any good. I say that I don't know, but I never got a response, and it was just so painful. Oh, I mean, one of them, he's called a gentleman. He went outside. He opened the door and let a woman go out into the garden. It's called a gentleman. When he came back in, she was bent over and everything, and he opened the door and let her go out, and he went out himself. And then he came back in. He wiped his slippered feet, and I was watching because I just come in to visit. And he looked right at me, and he saw my face, and I spoke, and his eyes glazed over mine with no recognition. And he turned and just started walking down the hallway like that. And I just, I was so flooded with love and tenderness because he just acted like I know. The gentleman, the kind person that's thoughtful. And yet, he didn't know me. And how could he not know a wife of 50 years and yet know to be a gentleman? I mean, it's just all those confounding things. And it was our 50th wedding anniversary. Again, this is in the book, and I'm trying to tell, but I'm just telling you this. And we took 50 little whoopie pies with, little heart cellophane things. And we went in and had a basket and balloons and everything. And I said, hi, dear. Hi, dear. This is our 50th anniversary, dear. And, he had no idea. And, I just thought some miracle was going to happen. And he would look at me and know me, even if it was just for a tenth of a second. And it didn't happen. And I just collapsed like a balloon inside. And everyone's congratulating us and all this. And I just couldn't get into it. I couldn't get into it. I mean, it was just, And then when I would go visit, it's called the White Wall. We'd go to visit, and I would just feel this wall come down in front of me. When we switched Russ to this other nursing home, the other one was letting him, his hair was long, he had a mustache, his clothes were raggy. And so we switched him. This was the first time going to see him, and they knew this was a problem. So they had him all cleaned up and spiffy, this jeans and plaid shirt, and his mustache was gone, his hair was cut and everything. And we go in, and this wall just always comes down when I go to visit. It keeps me from feeling anything when I get in there. And we go in, and he comes out with this new appearance, and the nurses are all crying because they're so happy for us, and the girls are crying, and I'm just staying there not feeling a darn thing because that wall was right there. And I thought, what's wrong with me? It's just that your body, you just have to shut it down because it's too much. And that's what I'm saying to people. There's nothing wrong with you. You've just had some trauma. And if you are a very feeling person, you feel deeply. And these things they're not small issues. They're not, And there's so many expectations of how we should be and what we should do. And we need to just, hi.
This isn't so much a question as it is comments.
Yeah.
My husband and I took care of his mother with Alzheimer's for like 10 or 11 years. So we saw a lot.
Yes. Yeah, because funny stuff can happen. Yes, they can. Yeah.
But still, I can see I remember the grief or the guilt or things that happened, the things that, I was frustrated and I would normally not do that.
Yeah.
Yell at somebody or whatever.
No.
And the thing now is that runs in my husband's family, and he's been recently had an evaluation.
Yes, good.
So he's not necessarily, they don't think it's Alzheimer's, but, you know,
Something's going on.
something.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm listening to you, and it brings back memories of his mother, and I know what's ahead of me.
Yes.
And that
Yeah.
business that you said about how your husband could just be so lively and
Oh.
vocal when anybody came over. It's like, it was the same way with his mother.
Yes. They
Our
worry.
parents
Yeah.
didn't understand.
No.
I said, well, she seems fine to me.
I know. You can keep them home to the end. Meanwhile, your insides are slowly rotting away, you know. But yeah, that's the thing. It's just, oh, I lost my thoughts. I was going to say there was something that but yeah, there's just, this is what, I mean, I hope people that are starting a journey will read this, because it's not to discourage, it's really to say, there's a lot of funny things that happen, but you're going to make it through, and your love does not change. I was so afraid Russ would think I didn't love him, because, I mean, I was going to say, this was early on, and our daughter was visiting, and he was upstairs. I was upstairs trying to get something to print out on the computer, and Russ was engineering. He just gotten a second degree in information technology, and it won't print. So I'm saying, you know, Russ, can you go up here and fix this printer for me? And so he goes upstairs. He turns it this way and that way and over and backwards and around and all this stuff over and over again. And I thought I was going to scream. I mean, what was wrong with him? You know what I mean? And so finally I go downstairs to my daughter, and I say, can you go up and fix that? And so when Russ comes downstairs, I said, Heidi's coming up because she knows what she's doing. Wasn't that cruel? That was so cruel. But I talked about in the book, and what it really was, it was fear. I was so scared of what I was seeing. It just made me, I lashed out. And this is what we do. And I felt so awful. I knew I was cruel, but I didn't want to be that way. Stop it. Be yourself, you know? And once he was diagnosed, then it was so much easier, because I knew what we were dealing with. But yeah, it's.
Also, another thing you said was that also through all this last year, you know, I'd been ill and had surgery, and we were moving. We had sold sold farm, and so we had that ahead of us, along with everything else.
Yeah.
So he was home, and he was supposed to be back.
Yeah. And he didn't.
Nothing.
Oh yeah. Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah. We were moving, and I told you, like the desk, and he had a list of things he was supposed to be doing. Well, because I was still working, and you know, he was such a. I mean, he put a dormer in the back of a house. I mean, he could do anything. And he said, you need to paint the barn before we have to paint the barn before we can sell a house. Okay. He wouldn't do it. And I got the ladder out, I got the paint, I got everything. It's all ready to go there. And I come home from work 2 or 3 times and hadn't done anything. But I come home this one day and he says, come look. And I go in, and we had, you know, it was old pine board floors, the radiator hole about maybe that big. See what I did today? And he had plugged that radiator hole with some putty, which is good, but where was a sense of perspective? Where was a sense of reality? You know, and you're dealing with this confusing person that isn't getting it. And yet he was so normal. And I have one here, it's called Silence. And I saw stuff at home, but I didn't talk about it. And we watched our daughter's dog during the week, because the dog had diabetes and had to be monitored during the week. So he'd go home on the weekends because Heidi could take care of him. So on Fridays, he would take the dog down to drop him off at Heidi's house. And I didn't know it, but for weeks, she would be sick to her stomach, just ready to throw up when her father came, because he acted so weird. I never knew it, you know? And yet here I am home. But, you know, it's so insidious. It creeps like fog, you know, it just creeps along, and they can do something one day, but they can't the next, and they're always so smart, and the judgment is good. We had just built a house, and he told them to put because I was still working, and he told them to put the oil pipe right beside the front door, so that it would be convenient for the oil people in the winter to come in and pump oil into the house. And we have this new house and this pipe right in the front of the door. I mean, it's just, you know, I mean, he was being considerate. he was being thoughtful, but he had no sense of judgment. So there's just so many things. So anyway, it's what we call silence. We don't say anything because we're afraid. It's taboo to say, I think Dad has something, because what if you're wrong? What if it's not that? And it's just, yeah. I know I've kept you a while. I know we're well up to time here. So, oh, well, thank you. This is the sales pitch. It's not, but if anybody does want a book, I have them here. But my purpose is to just spread the message. And it's on Amazon. It's on different bookstores, Sherman's or whatever. It's in, Waterville and whatever. But if you know of someone that's going through it, I would really recommend it as a gift. I really would. I just had this, I tell you stories, but I met a woman at a book fair a year ago, and she contacted me, and her partner was just getting dementia. And she said, I read your book, and she said 2 stories in it keep me afloat. One of them was the trio, because she could remember that I said, it's not you doing it, it's the disease that's putting you in the nursing home. And the other one was, it's called duality, but it's one half of us, we want our freedom, but to get our freedom, they have to pass away, and we're scared from the past, we want to lose them, but we want our freedom. So we always sit back and forth, and it's just saying, it's normal. It's called emotional ambivalence. You're so ambivalent how you feel, because we're human beings. I mean, I was afraid I was never going to get my life back. I was just going to, I had my own little business, and I had to stop everything, So, but she said those 2 stories, realizing that ambivalence was okay, and that it wasn't her doing it. So she was able to place her person. Isn't that wonderful? It just gave her the peace to do it. So, yeah. Well, thank you for coming. I could talk for hours about this. I'm so passionate about it. So I really love having an audience. Thank you. Thank you very much. So, okay. All righty.